The Tao of Self-Confidence, episode 854. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have an amazing lady on the show today. She is the founder of Otherwordy, and she will explain a little bit about that, and I'm super excited to have her today. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Neva Talladen. Neva, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the listeners.
Hi, Sheena. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm the founder of Otherwordy.com, and that is because I do book editing. I am a book developmental editor, and my main focus and goal is to work with authors and small business owners whose story is not normally told. It's not part of the default narrative. So that means Asian American stories, like stories of minorities. I know you hate that term, and we'll talk about that later. Of marginalized and multicultural authors and small business owners. So I've been very fortunate to work with authors like you on their books and stories and help authors like you kind of tell your authentic narrative. So yeah, that's the goal of my business.
I love it. And honestly, I don't know what I would do without Neva because she's amazing. I mean, I wouldn't have gone through the book process so well without her. So I just want to say thank you. And I love, everything you stand for because there is still so much I call underrepresented, groups who feel like they don't have a voice, who feel like their stories don't matter, especially when you're constantly told that your story is too specific. And of course, I can go on a tangent on that, but we won't go there. But our stories matter because representation matters every single day, whether you're Asian American or not, right? Every culture has their own stories, their own traditions that we need to share and taboos that we need to talk about. So I love what you're doing. And Neva, what's your cultural background?
I'm Filipino, born and raised in the Philippines. I came to New York unintentionally, but actually most of my family are US citizens since the 70s because my grandfather is a US citizen. So I think like you were born in the Philippines too, right?
Yeah, I was born in Cebu.
I was born in Manila, but my mother is from Iloilo and my father is from Ilocos Sur. So it's like a north and south situation.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And what'd be your favorite self-confidence quote?
So it's not a direct self-confidence quote, but I always come back to this all the time when I have self-doubt, and it's a quote from a letter of John Steinbeck to his son, because his son was falling in love with this woman. So he wrote to his dad and he was like, how do I know? How can I be sure? He has moments of self-doubt. And his dad says, if it is right, it happens. Nothing good gets away. And I think self-confidence is all about believing that you deserve good things, that believing all people, they need good things in their lives. That's what we're here for in our lives. So if you believe that, then you develop this self-belief or self-confidence that one day your goal, if it is right, it's going to happen. So it's not a direct like self-confidence quote, but that really gives me a lot of comfort and courage when the going gets tough.
I love it. And it has everything to do with self-confidence because especially women, we never see our worth. We never think we're good enough. We don't deserve good things in life. And so we attract the wrong things, right? And really, we all do deserve good things because we're human. We make mistakes. We go out there and do the best that we can and try to make this world a better place. And so when you start realizing you do deserve good things, then things just start to happen out of nowhere. And you just got to trust the process, trust your intuition, and be okay to let go of the outcome. So I really love that quote that you mentioned. And in your own words, how do you define self-confidence?
Self-confidence, I think, is about the first word, self. When you know yourself, then you trust yourself to make decisions. It's not about a false sense of worth. It's not about faking it till you make it. And I know why they coined the term, but I really don't like that term because you don't have to fake it. What you need to do is to look into yourself, take time to really like get to know yourself. And when you do, then you know that when you have this feeling like, oh, my gut is telling me this, but I don't yet know why, but you trust that gut because you trust yourself. But as you mentioned a while ago, as we grow up, we're told to second guess ourselves like, oh, your opinion is not as, it doesn't matter as much as the opinion of your father or the opinion of your boyfriend or whoever, right? And so you learn to accept that. And then when your self is starting to tell you, this isn't right for you, or you should do this because this is the right thing for you, you start to doubt yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest components of lacking self confidence because you don't trust yourself. So, by definition of self confidence is trust. Get knowing yourself and trusting yourself.
I love that. And it's so true. It's just having this innate trust that no matter what happens, we're going to make it happen. Even if we fumble, even if we fall down 1,000 times. I mean, that's what confidence is. It's just that inner knowing that you can do it.
Nobody really knows what they're doing, Sheena.
That's true. That is very true.
Nobody is born a genius. And, everything is figure outable, to an extent, of course. We have history, we have culture, we have people who came before us and sacrificed things before us so that we can make ourselves into what we want to be, you know? And I feel like that's part of self confidence. Take that opportunity because it's been given to you, no matter how small that opportunity is, right? And it's not about, oh, self confidence because I know exactly what I'm going to do. It's the opposite. Self confidence comes in when you're like, how do I learn this? How do I figure this out? And I'm just gonna like toot your horn because you're not tooting it. You came into your book project not knowing, whether you don't see yourself as a writer, but you said I'm gonna do it anyway, and you figured it out, right? And you came to, when we first talked, you were like, oh, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about book publishing or writing or whatever. Is this right or whatever? But you banged it out in 3 months. And even the most experienced authors sometimes couldn't do that. So what I'm trying to say is it's figure outable. It doesn't mean that if you haven't done it before, it doesn't mean that you can never do it, right? And it's all about learning, a learning mindset.
I'm not, yeah. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I had no clue. And I was willing to say that too, right? And it takes a lot of confidence to say you don't know because we're so afraid. We always feel like we need to be perfect. But when you can learn to let go and surrender and realize there's someone better out there, be okay with that. Like you mentioned, take that opportunity. So I love that definition. And Neva, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I have to say that the whole journey, the whole self confidence journey, took a long time because self belief. You don't realize that you don't believe in yourself. You don't realize that you don't trust yourself. I wish there was a mirror that can just tell you that. But I had to take a lot of twists and turns in my career before I had the confidence to say that, you know what, I really want to make a living with words, writing, editing. But my whole life, I thought that it's not a good enough goal. So I became like a small business owner, which I don't regret, of course. Small business owner, a tech entrepreneur. I basically like took a round trip, like 15-year journey, 15 to 20-year journey to get where I am. And in the end, I went back to my first love anyway, which is creative writing, words, editing. And I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And I wish it didn't take that long because I'm 44 years old now. But at the same time, I'm grateful that I'm able to come full circle and realize that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think sometimes we just have to learn things the hard way. The universe has certain plans for us. It's learning lessons. It's for you to share your story. And you're right, whatever's meant for you, it will always come back to you, right? Um, and it just keeps pushing you back to that thing. It's just a sign like this is what you're meant to do. This is what you're meant to do. And sometimes we're so stubborn, we think, no, that's not it. But it's like, okay, this is it. Okay, I get it now. But what was that point in your life when you realized, copy editing, especially highlighting stories for underrepresented groups, what was that aha moment that made you take that leap?
I think the aha moment was it was right before the pandemic when I was my tech startup had merged with another, wonderful tech startup, and everything seemed well. Everything seemed to be going well, but I wasn't. There was something missing. Like I wasn't happy, and I had employees. At one point, I was like a manager for like 300 people, and then in my own business I had employees, and I realized I didn't want to be that. For some people that's the dream. I realized I was modeling my dream against this ideal that I see, like, oh, it's so, if you want to change the world, you have to be a startup founder, you have to be a disruptor in the tech industry because that's where the biggest returns are. And I realized it really wasn't for me. I was skinny, not in a healthy way. My hair was falling out. There were all these signs that my body was telling me that I didn't know where it was coming from. And then the pandemic was, it's a horrible time for humanity, but it also forced a lot of us to reset and to really examine. And the aha moment came, during the first months, because you didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I was going to be alive in the next week or two. And so I was faced with the question, what am I going to, if I was going to die next week, would I be proud of the life that I lived? Would I have been happy with how my life turned out? And of course, like, I love my family. They've always been supportive and everything. But the truth was, no, I wasn't happy with how my career turned out. And I had to take a hard look. What do you want to do? What do you really, come on, be honest. So it was like a come to Jesus aha moment. And that was when the whole, concept for otherwordy.com came about. And I was like just freelance writing. Before that, editing, writing was like just a side gig. It was never like the main thing. But I didn't realize that that is really how I want to spend my time. I have a business strategist, and she said to me today, I really glow when I talk about my editing project. I really glow when I talk about my clients because that's what I think what I was always meant to do. It's easy for me to coax out the stories. I can see the stories that even the people who tell them don't see, you know? And I think that is such a great advocacy because as human beings, we are not whole if we don't know the whole story. And if we're only telling stories about white Western culture, if we're only telling the dominant narratives, then we're not learning. We don't see the big picture. It's not complete. So telling the stories of a multicultural world, which it's a multicultural world, helps everyone, not just the people from that culture. So that's what really drives me now in what I do for my business.
Yeah, and I can tell, you do light up when you talk about it, right? Being able to help people in underrepresented groups share their story, put themselves out there, and be able to get more story out of it, get the feeling out, so that becomes a really great book for people to read. And I'm so glad you decided to step into what you were meant to do, because it's not always easy. Not everyone has the courage to do that or the confidence. But here you are today, being able to take that opportunity, and now it's making you happy. You have more confidence. You're doing something you love. You're showing up as your authentic self and helping others at the same time, which is so amazing.
Of course, I have to recognize we come from a certain privilege to be able to do this. I have a very supportive family who doesn't pressure me to be any particular way or take any particular career. I've chosen to be without kids, and I have a supportive partner who is on board with that 100%. So I have the luxury of time, basically. And I don't need to have a full time job to be able to explore, this business. But I know the reality isn't the same for a lot of people. Of course, they can pursue their dreams, but they have more barriers to entry. So I absolutely recognize my privilege with this, but I also take the opportunity to honor that privilege by pursuing my business and helping others with theirs, hopefully.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if our listeners wanted, if they're listening to your episode and they're in a similar journey to self-confidence, what would be that one tip you'd give to them?
Well, if they wanted to write a book and they're not naturally inclined to write, I suggest that they read Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. Like, forget the grammar books. No, no, don't do that. You don't need to be a perfectionist. Like, read Bird by Bird, this wonderful book by Anne Lamott, basically teaching them, the process of breaking it down, because when you break it down to smaller tasks or smaller ideas, you get encouraged. You can do it more because you know that you only have to do this one thing at a time. So in this, like, everything in this world is about convenience and being fast paced and, like, oh, instant and whatever. But you don't have to. You can take as much time as you want. You need to, as you said a while ago, Sheena, like, trust the process. For you, the process was 3 months, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you have kids, if you have a full time job and whatever, you can write it in a different time frame, or in a different way.
Thanks for sharing that. I love that. And I'm sure all our listeners are going to go grab that book to check it out. And I love how you mentioned, yeah, confidence is just breaking things in small steps to get the big results. And when we can build on that little by little, you'd be surprised of the results. So I love that you mentioned that. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, or maybe some of them are interested in writing a book and want to get their story out, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Yeah, like, they can check out my website, otherwordy.com, or they can follow me on Instagram, Otherwordy. So it's not otherworldly, it's otherwordy. And all my info there for a discovery call, or if they just want to share ideas and see where it's going to go. So there's a free discovery call there with me. And I know that one of your projects is, like, to encourage your listeners too to go get that book, or to write that book, or to be in your book, right? Which I think is another wonderful project, like the Asian Women Who Boss Up. Like, I have the book because you gave it to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, to our listeners, if you want to connect with Neva, you can also head on over to the and search for Neva's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I really just want to thank Neva today for taking the time to share her story and tips with us on self confidence. So, thank you so much, Neva.
Thank you, Sheena. I enjoyed talking to you.
Not a problem. It was such an honor to have you on our show. So, to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self confidence, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. You can order your copy of Asian Women Who Boss Up book by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.